Welcome to the Edupedia world. In this tutorial of data structures, we are going to study Introduction to Algorithms. So let's begin. Well, the agenda for this tutorial will be to cover the introduction, then to see what is algorithm, and finally to do some of the examples of algorithm writing. So let's begin with the introduction. Well, you can see the only thing that I have mentioned in the slide is let's consider a problem of preparing tea. Okay, now let's consider this problem that you have to prepare tea at your home. What do you need to do? Let's keep on writing all the steps that you need to do for preparing the tea. So let me open a notepad to write that. Okay guys, I have opened the notepad and let's write the step to prepare the tea. So what do you think would be the step 1? Well, I think the step 1 would be to the stove or the gas, whatever you are doing to prepare the tea. Okay, so you have to switch on the stove. So once that is done, what do you think should be the next step? Well, I think the next step would be to put 1 cup of water in the pan and to put that on the stove. Fine. So once that is done, what do you think should be the next step? Well, the next step is to put the sugar. But firstly, we need to check whether we have a sugar or not. So, check if sugar is present. Okay. Now, under step 3 only, I'm going to just write 3.a. So, this is because of part of 3. So, yes, if it's present, then what? Then I'm writing 3.8.1. Now for step 4, again you have to put the tea leaves. Well, for tea leaves, again you can put the same logic to check if tea leaves are present or not. If yes, they are present, and if no, do nothing. So this is one of the algo of preparing a tea. But you can notice that we haven't added the milk to that. So the other algo is to add the milk before. Like after putting the sugar, the tea, let's put the milk over here. So this is one way of doing that. The other way of doing that is after making a tea, let's put the heated milk separately, because someone might not like to add milk into their tea. Someone just like to have it as, and some other person might like to have it as it is. So let's make it customizable and let's allow a user if they want to add a milk or not. So just to do that, I'll add a step, and if it's not, if it's the decision is no, then do nothing. Just serve it as it is. Okay, so this is one way of preparing a tea. Other way is like, as I told you before, we even put the, milk after just putting the tea leaves. That is in step 5. Okay, but then our tea won't be customizable because someone might not like to add the milk. Similarly, we can even improve our algo of being a tree by not adding sugar into it. So, in the similar way, when we're asking the user if they want milk or not, similar way, we can even ask the user if they want sugar or not. Okay, so that can be done afterward. So, that will make our tea more customizable according to the user need. We can put the amount of sugar and milk to it. So, algorithm, what do you think is the algorithm? Algorithm is nothing, it's just a step of the instruction to solve your problem. So, this is the algorithm to prepare the tea. Okay, so you have seen that how can we write a simple algorithm in our day-to-day life example. Fine, now let's study the formal definition of the algorithm. Let's go back to our slides. Okay guys, so the formal definition of algorithm is a step-by-step instruction to solve a particular given problem. Okay, it's very simple definition. It's step-by-step instruction to solve any given particular problem. That is called algorithm. Like in our case, we have just written the algorithm of preparing the tea. Fine. So this was the algorithm part. Then let's try out some examples of writing out the actual algorithm of some of our computer science problems. The problems that we might face in our computer science. Okay. not just a real life problem, but a computer science problem. Okay guys, so I have opened my notepad and let's try to, take a problem where we need to sort the elements. Okay, let me have the elements like this. Okay, now sorting can be done in many ways. Let's try to just focus on one. I'll go over here and try to, solve this problem. Okay, so step 1 would be, I would like to, compare 4 with 6. Fine. So just compare first and second element. Okay. And whichever is smaller, let me bring it to the front. Then I just want to, go back to my second and third element, which is 6 and 1. So I just compare both of them and I bring the smaller to the front. So 1 will come in the front. So let me just, write the iteration of whatever I'm saying. So after my first step, like my first iteration, it would be 4, 6, 1, 3, and 2. So that was comparing 4 and 6. Okay. After that, I'll compare 6 and 1. So if I compare 6 and 1 and bring smaller to the front, so my algo will become 4, 1, 6, 3, and 2. So this is by comparing 6 and 1. Okay, after that, I can compare 6 and 3 because these are the next two elements that I will get after traversing. So if I compare 6 and 3, the 3 will come before 6. Okay. And finally, let me compare 6 and 2. In this way, 2 will come after 6. So I hope so. I'm not writing it, again and again. I hope so you're getting. In this step, I have compared like 3 and 6. And in this step, I have compared 2 and 6. So you see, eventually after going through each element of this array, you can see that I have got my highest or the biggest element at the end. So 6 has got till the end. So you see, this is like one complete iteration of the whole array. So we are even iterating within the array, like we are, iterating in a way we are just comparing the two elements and then subsequent to and then subsequent to and so on. So this is one of our iteration that we have traversed our complete array by our logic. Okay. Now let's do the same process. Let's repeat the same process for the second iteration. Now again we just, repeat the process, but this time we'll not include the last element, 6. Why so? Because this is already sorted. So 6 is placed on its position. That is the highest element is placed on its correct position. So we just traverse the whole element, but we start from the, 0th index of our array and we just stop by our final length minus 1 index. So our length would be like 5. Okay, and earlier we were going like less than 5, so we were going till 6. But this time we just want to go till 2. So therefore we will do length minus 1 less than length minus 1. So if we do that, so you will see that we are actually, reaching till 2 and sorting this position. So I'm going to just quickly write what will be the iteration once we do that. So now we compare, since we are left with this as an input for the second iteration, so we have to compare 1 with 4. So if I compare 1 with 4, I'll get 1 in the front and 4 after that. And rest of the elements will remain same. So it would be 3, 2 and 6. Okay. So this is I have got by comparing 1 and 4. Fine. After that I have to compare 4 with 3. So if I do that, the 3 will come before 4. Fine. So this is obtained by comparing 4 and 3. Fine. After that I have to compare 4 with 2. So if I compare 4 with 2, again 2 will come ahead of 4. So this is by comparing 2 and 4. Okay, that's it. So we are stopping over. So because we are not including the last element, we have to stop just before 1 before the last. That's why we have stopped over here. So this is our, in a way, second iteration of array. So you see we have actually traversed the whole array just excluding the last, and we have, covered all of the elements. So after this iteration, you see the last two elements. That 6 was, sorted in a previous iteration, and this iteration 4 is on its right position. So 4 and 6 are in its right position. Now the third iteration which I'm going to do a sorting, I'm going to skip the last two and I'm only going to cover the elements before the last two. Okay, so this time I'm going to take length minus 2, less than equals to length minus 2. So just compare the elements. Now we compare 1 with 3. If I'm going to compare 1 with 3, it will remain as it is because 1 is already lesser than 3 and it's already ahead of 3. So this won't make any impact. So this is by comparing 1 and 3. Fine. Now I have to compare 3 with 2. Now if I compare 3 with 2, the 2 will come ahead of 3. Why? Because 2 is smaller than 3. And that's what the logic we are following. Just make a smaller element, ahead of bigger element. So this is by comparing 2 and 3. Fine. After that, just stop at 3 because we don't want to compare 3 and 4 because 4 is already sorted. So now you just see that we have actually covered the whole array, the remaining whole array in the third iteration. Fine. Now the fourth iteration, the remaining two are 1 and 2. So definitely in this case all that's sorted, but it could be that it's not sorted. So we'll definitely, check for that and we'll cover the fourth and last iteration also. So in this iteration, we are just going to compare 1 with 2. So when we compare 1 with 2, we are going to get the similar array which will be sorted one. Fine. So this is by comparing 1 and 2. If I do the comparison between 1 and 2, 1 will be ahead of 2 and which is as it is. Okay, so we have done all the iterations. So after comparing 1 and 2, we don't need to compare anything else because 3 is already on its correct position in third iteration. So that's it. And now after the all fourth addition, we have got our correct sorted array. So you see number of iteration that we did is actually equivalent to 1 less than the number of elements. So there were 5 elements. So we actually did 4 iterations. So this is the logic that we have followed. Okay. So I hope so you have understood how we have sorted. Now let's try to write it in our steps. So the first step that we took is we actually took our array and then we initialized, you can say, two variables. Let's take the two variables as I and j or just the two variables and let's assign it to the first element and 1 greater than first, that is the second element. Okay. So since it's an array and it's on index, so the index 0 will actually be like the element at index 0 will be I and the element at index 1 would be j. So you see actually I'm using the notations to write an array. So I'm not writing equals to, I'm not writing anything else, but I'm just writing a user defined notation. So you can, for writing a algo, you can use anything. You can either use a simple English language where you are just saying and writing it properly, just take two variables I and j and assign I to the first element of an array and j to the second element, that is one higher than the first element, okay? Or you can even write it in a notation like I'm doing that. But you have to make sure that, whoever is reading your algo, the algo should be really clear to him because right now I am explaining you and I'm saying it from words, so it's very easy to understand what I have written. But let's say if I just give you this algo, just give you this step, would you be able to understand? Well, I don't think so. It would be really easy to understand. So for that sake, I would recommend writing in a proper English language. Or even if you're writing the notation form, then after writing the algo, just write a note section where you just explain what this means. So you just explain that this arrow means that we have taken two variables I and j, and this arrow means we are assigning the value on the left hand side to the right hand side. Okay. So in this way you can actually explain. But again, my recommendation would be for a safer side just to explain in a very simple English language. And also after that you can even write this notation. Okay. So then it's become very easy for user to understand what you want to say in the algo. Okay, so first step is to assign that. So once that is assigned in step 2, Let's compare I and j. So I'm writing compare I and j. Okay. Or I think I need to modify. I just, I will not write the element, but I just put the index. So you see the change that I have done is like I'm assigning I and j to the index 0 and 1. Okay. So when I'm comparing I and j, I'm actually not comparing I and j, but I'm rather comparing the element at I and the element at j. That's why I'm writing it like that. Okay. So after comparing these two, I want to bring the smaller one in the front. Okay. So the step 3 I write if a is greater than aj, then we need to bring aj to like before ai. Okay. So if that is so, then under this my step point a would be to replace or to swap ai and aj. How will I swap that? I can even write that logic over here. So I can create a temp. Okay. So I'll just write create temp variable, put value of ai into temp. Okay. Then put value of aj to position I, and finally put value stored in temp at position j. So this is a simple swapping logic. I hope so that you're aware of that. Even if you're not, then this line is actually, clarifying how we can swap it. Fine. So once swapping is done, so you have brought the smaller element front. Then you need to actually increment I and j. Okay, so this was the case if II is greater than AJ. If it's not, then I just leave it as it is. I do nothing. Okay, so there is no step 3b. After the comparison of first and second element is done, I actually want to increase I and j by 1. So step 4 would be just increasing I and j. Okay, so this is I am doing. And after once I have increased, let us repeat the steps. So I'm going to repeat. Step 5, I'm actually going to repeat from step 2 to step 4. Okay. But then, how much is like, what's the limit I want to repeat? Like, till, what's the limit? Till j becomes the last element. So, I would say j is equals to length of array. Okay. Till then, it will just repeat it. So you see, this is one iteration. Okay, so this will actually complete, and after completing this 5 steps, we reach over here. But then again, we want to start it by initializing I and j equals to 0. Okay, and again we want to iterate it over here because this is like after this we have got this. But again we want to do that. So after doing this, again we want to go to step 1. So therefore, I'll just write step 6 would be go to step 1 and follow below steps. But since I'm writing for the below steps, so step 1 is fine, 2 is fine, 3 is fine, 4 is fine. But in 5th, we are saying keep on continuing step 2 and 4 till j is the length of array. But in this case, in the second, we don't want that because we don't want it to be till the length of array. We want it one lesser to be the length of array. So for that, let me, just store length of array in a variable. So, in starting of array, you can even write a prerequisite or even you can write step 0, like the initial step. So, step 0 would be, let me create a temp variable or let me create variable len and assign that to length of array. Okay, now my variable length contain my length of array. So after once the iteration is done, first iteration like this is done, I want this array which is len, which was earlier 5 to become 4. So I want the j should go to fourth element, okay, this one. So therefore after step 5, I'm going to reduce the value of len. So I'm going to put step 6 over here and I'm going to len equals to len minus 1. So this will actually take me till 1 before the last element. And so with the third iteration, 1 less the second last element and third last element, so on. So instead of, comparing till j equals to length of array, let me do it till len, because after every iteration, I'm actually reducing the len. Okay. So I think this will work fine. So when we say go for the below steps, it will just keep on going the below steps till, how much for the outer loop, or, for the outer loop, how much you want to do till your length becomes, because when we say length, so the length variable will become over here 2, because this is like 1, I'm considering this is 1 and this is 2. So till length will become 2, this has to continue. So I'm going to write, go to step 1 and follow below steps till length is greater than 2. So till n is greater than 2, just go on. As soon as n becomes 2, just stop over there, because that means we have already done all the iteration and we have reached to the last two elements, and it's also done. Okay, this is like it's going to a do while loop where it will do first three and then we'll check like length is greater than 2. It's okay, keep on doing that. As soon as n becomes 2, that is after the comparison has been done, it will check further length. If it's 2, then we'll repeat the process. Okay, so this is how we just write the algo of sorting. Okay, so this is not written in any programming language, but this is written in a simple English and the symbol notation form. Okay, so I think so this is clear. I mean, this is very simple algo. Okay, so I'm expecting it to be clear by now. Even if it's not clear, then we are also covering sorting algos separately in some of our future videos, but I think it should be able to, at least get that how we did the sorting. And as far as writing algo, it's not, there is no hard fast rule that you just need to write in this way. You can write in your own English. You need to firstly understand how we did that, and once you are like able to get it, then you can write it in your own words. Okay, I mean that's how you write the algo. So there is no hard fast rule to write this notation, to write this English. You can write any of a simple English language. I mean, you just write it in simple English language and it will be sufficient. Okay, so that is about the algo writing. Okay guys, so thank you very much for this attending this tutorial. Now let's meet in the next tutorial. Thank you.